And there we are. Hello, Tia. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining and congratulations on being crowned the
Thank you.
2021 Miss Black USA. I mean,
Thank you.
it seems like just yesterday, Myja, when we were both serving as HBCU Queens our senior year, holding women's empowerment events on campus, representing our universities. So I'm sure it was a full circle moment for you when they crowned you the 2021 Miss Black USA. Well, how does it feel? How does it feel to accomplish such a major goal? And what does this full circle experience mean to you?
Yeah. Like you said, it really does seem like it was just yesterday. And when I think about, homecoming and, all the college festivities, it's like, wow, we've really been, out of school for a while. And I just can remember, those experiences so vividly. But this particular accomplishment has been unbelievable, has been amazing, life-changing. And it's one of those things where you talked about it being a full circle moment, right? And it truly is, but you really never know what God has for you. You really never know where he's going to take you, what he's going to do for you, so that you can leave your mark, with someone else. And so you set your goals, you make your plans, you have your dreams. But he always has a greater plan. Like I said, that is going to inspire other people. And so that's more so my full circle moment is that, I can continue to make, my supporters proud, my loved ones proud, my family proud. When I wrote my statement for the Miss Black USA magazine, I said, this crown is for you. This crown is for my family. This crown is for those watching. This crown is for those who have, been inspired by my journey. And so that really is the full circle moment for me. And just being able to leave that mark has been incredible, absolutely incredible.
Absolutely amazing. We are so proud of you, and you're right. For the women who are inspired by your journey, we appreciate you sharing your story, and that's kind of the point of this conversation today, too, right? To share the stories and the journey of HBCU women here at Bank of America. And so, one quick question as HBCU graduates, we both know that one thing we all have in common is that HBCUs are very female dominant. In fact, as Sonia mentioned during her remarks, female enrollment at HBCUs has been higher than male enrollment every year since 1976. And it was reported at 63% female in 2019. And so, with such strong female presence, women in leadership at an HBCU is not hard to find, not hard to come across. So can you share any of your reflections about the culture of women in leadership at your HBCU and how that prepared you for where you are in your journey today?
Yeah, I think, one of the most amazing things that I took from, being at A&T, being at my HBCU. Oh, and shout out to all my Aggies out there, Aggie Pride. Yes, proud A&T alum. And one of the most amazing things I think, with being at an HBCU and surrounded not just by Black women, but Black people in general, was that it was this excellence, right? Like it was this environment of everybody wanting to be excellent, everybody wanting to be great, right? Everybody wanting to reach their goals. And I grew up in predominantly white spaces, so I didn't see that, and so being around all of these wonderful Black people, these excellent Black people who were, set up to do great things was amazing for me. And so, when I came in, I jumped right on the bandwagon. I wanted to be a part of everything. I wanted to be in leadership roles. I wanted to be a part of every organization, that I could be a part of. And so I think it taught me a few things about women in leadership at an HBCU. So when we speak about kind of student leadership, one is the power of networking, right? Because, I can always go back, and call my girlfriends, call those girls that I was on court with, call the girls that I was in the organization with and say, hey, either I need a job or I have a job, that's available and I think you'd be a great fit for. So always being able to reach back and have that networking element is so important. So I think that's one. Secondly is collaboration, excuse me. Society always wants to pin us together, but collaboration amongst women, especially Black women, is so powerful. And when we come together her, honey, Black women are unstoppable. Do you hear me? Undefeated. When they say Black girl magic, that is a real thing. I really believe in that. And so I think being at an HBCU has taught me the power of collaboration. And then lastly, I would also say empowerment. The power of empowerment is so powerful. Tia, what was your platform? Empower the women, empower women. Absolutely. That is so true. It still holds true to this day. And again, I think it goes back to the idea of, when you turn the TV on, when you're scrolling through social media, they're trying to pin us against each other. But I've learned just at my HBCU and in my career that me helping another Black woman does not take away my light. So I think, that empowerment piece was so powerful, and it's all connected, right? That networking piece, that collaboration piece, and then that empowerment piece is all connected, because when you collaborate, when you network, you are also empowering each other. So those are the biggest things I think I took from, being a student female leader and working with other female leaders at my HBCU.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing gems dropped. I mean, the power of the HBCU network is so strong, and just encouraging that culture of collaboration and support amongst women, amongst HBCU students is definitely not going to dim, our light any further. So we want to definitely encourage that. Well, I appreciate those tips and tidbits. But one last question before we get into this amazing panel discussion. As Ms. Black USA, you've expressed that you are passionate about creating the next generation of female leaders through mentorship, through career preparation, and community initiatives that focus on confidence building and networking. And you spoke on networking a little, but I want to focus on confidence building, because evidence shows that women are less self-assured than men. And oftentimes, in order to succeed, confidence matters just as much as competence. So for the women who may second guess themselves and what they are capable of, what advice would you share that would encourage them to own their journey, to manifest that confidence, and to lead from where they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say, I don't have the perfect answer to that, and there are days where I wake up and I'm not feeling it, right? I don't feel beautiful. I don't feel, confident. You'll have those days, and that's completely normal because it's a part of being human. But I will say I did want to share this. Today we're finishing up. I work at Zoom, y'all, and I just finished up our annual conference. It's called Zoomtopia. And so they closed it out with Viola Davis. So y'all know I was in my chair just done, after she finished talking. But she said something that really stuck with me, and it was so relevant to right now. She said, when it comes to courage, right, you plant the seed, you don't know how it's going to grow or if it's going to grow, but you plant it anyway. So I think that's where that confidence, right, and that courage truly comes from, is to just do it. Just put yourself out there, just do it. And the thing is, when you're scared, when you're fearful, when you're not feeling yourself, do it anyway. Get up out the bed when you don't feel like it, speak up for yourself, even when you're fearful, even when you're scared, even when you don't know what's going to happen when you make your voice known. So I think it's really just about doing it. Stop waiting for things to be perfect. Stop waiting for all the dots to click together and to just do it. And I truly think that confidence comes from experience. And when I say experience, I mean just trying things, just being experimental, believing just enough, having that small mustard seed of faith to step out and to just do it. And of course, surrounding yourself with positive people, uplifting friends, family, your support system, prayer. I've mentioned God a couple of times. I'm a huge spiritual person. So, praying, however you meditate, however you get in touch with your spirituality, to do that. And that just believing yourself is really just stepping out on faith and just doing it. Best advice is to just do it.
Let's do it. I love that. Just plant the seed anyway and believe that it will grow, and then watch it manifest. I love that message. Thank you so much, Myja. We are very happy to support your platform and your reign as Miss Black USA. And we really appreciate, you joining our effort to help uplift, educate, and employ more Black women. So with that, I will turn it over to you to assume the moderator position and welcome our dynamic panel of speakers for the rise of HBCU women in our workforce conversation. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Myja. Thank you so much.
Tia, thank you. It's so good to be back. This is a reunion. I have not spoken to Tia in so long. So it's so good to just see her face, hear her voice, feel her energy. And, when we talk about uplifting Black women, empowering Black women leadership, Black women employment, honey, you don't even have to ask, just sign me up. Just put my name on the dotted line and I am there, because that's everything I stand for. Sometimes it is draining to look to the left and to look to the right when you're at work, and you don't see anybody who looks like you, right? It becomes draining, it's exhausting. So, anything, that I can do to advocate to bring more of people who look like me into these spaces, sign me up. So hello, ladies. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation. Now, y'all are going to have to give me some energy. I'm excited. Long day at work, but we are here. I'm a pastor's kid. And so they used to always say at church, there could have been anywhere else in the world you could have been today, but you are here with us. And so I'm so thankful, so excited to jump this conversation off and hear some gems from you all, because I'm going to be over here taking some mental notes as well. So hello, ladies. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I just want to hear your voice and say hi for a quick second.
Hello.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll introduce you so that the ladies on the call know exactly who you are, and then we can jump right into the conversation. So we have Miss Sonia Shields, who is Global Head of Campus Recruiting and also a Hampton alumna. Miss Sonia Shields. Hello. Miss Tiffany Eubanks Saunders, who is the Managing Director, Head of Diverse Segments, and a North Carolina A&T alumna. Hello, Miss Tiffany. And last but not least, Miss Cynthia Bowman, who is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion and Talent Acquisition Officer and a Spelman alumna. Hello, Miss Cynthia.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, awesome. Well, so excited again to be here. So excited to be chatting with you today, and we are going to go ahead and kick off the conversation. So listen, women have been known for years to keep our heads down and play by the rules. We've been sure that with enough hard work, our natural talents will be recognized and rewarded. But the reality is, success also takes a level of self-advocacy and belief. Studies have found that there is a clear confidence gap that separates men and women. Compared with men, women don't consider themselves as qualified for roles of interest, as ready for promotions. They predict they'll do worse on tests, and they generally underestimate their abilities. This lack of confidence can be devastating to not only one's mental health, but their career advancement as well. As mentioned earlier, success has been found to correlate just as closely with confidence as it does with competence. The good news, though, is that with work, confidence can be acquired. Miss Cynthia, let's start with you. Can you share a little bit about your career journey and how you've acquired the confidence and self-belief that has led to your current success?
Well, first of all, it is my pleasure to be with you here today. I feel like I'm representing all HBCUs, but certainly come to you from Spelman College. I go back often, and it's funny, I remember when I was on campus, I would always say, why are the old school people always coming back? But we can't wait to come back to campus. It is our home. It's like my second home. And so you'll see me at every homecoming for the most part, and I can't wait for COVID to be behind us so I can be back on campus. But my name is Cynthia Bowman. I lead diversity and inclusion for Bank of America, as well as talent acquisition. I've been at the bank for some time. I've also worked in consulting. Prior to that, I was in a more technical capacity. I worked at AT&T Bell Laboratories. So I've been at this for some time. I will say I'm also married. I have 4 kids, a son at Morehouse College, actually right now is a sophomore, and 2 grandkids. So we can talk about work-life balance at some point too, if that topic is of any interest. Look, you asked about 2 things. One is sort of, the self component and what sort of instilled in me my own spirit of belief. And then the second was confidence. Look, I tell people all the time, I graduated with a degree from confidence from Spelman College. And I didn't probably realize it back then, but every Tuesday we had convocation and you would have all these different Black women speaking to you. I remember Oprah Winfrey, Susan Taylor, Nikki Giovanni. Just the list goes on. And although it felt like a class back then, what the institution was doing was showing me Black excellence and Black women on a weekly basis. And they told us and exemplified excellence completely. So when you graduate, I thought I could do and achieve anything I wanted to do in this world because I graduated literally with a degree in confidence. So I do believe that Spelman truly changed my life. With that being said, though, I have to credit my mom in terms of belief. And one of the things that she has said to me is it's never too late to be what you might have been. And you think about somebody who came out of school with a computer science degree. I also have an industrial engineering degree from Georgia Institute of Technology, who then decided to leave work, go back to school. I went to school at Kellogg. I have my MBA in work behavior and operations, and I've been doing work in the HR field ever since. But when I told her I was going to leave my job and go back to school, she instilled in me to follow my heart, follow my dream, and follow my passion. So it's individuals like her and Sonia and Tiffany who are on this call today, other women around me that continue to push me, coach me, tell me things that I need to hear. And by the way, we're going to talk about your board of directors. You need someone on your board who's going to tell you what you want to, what you need to hear, even when you don't need to hear it. And I will tell you, I have that on the call today for people that you'll hear from. But at the end of the day, that confidence comes from sort of my upbringing, my family, and certainly the HBCU experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny, when I was in undergrad, they used to always say homecoming is for alum. And I never understood what that meant until I graduated. So exactly. I can understand always heading back. Miss Tiffany, let's knock it over to you. Talk a little bit about your career journey and how you've acquired confidence and self-belief that you feel has led to your success today.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, greetings, beautiful ladies of HBCUs. I am so thrilled to be here this afternoon, and there's not a better place for me to be. As Cynthia mentioned, she and I are our sister girls and our sisters keepers. You always hear men talk about our brothers keepers. We're our sisters keepers within Bank of America and even outside of Bank of America. And I'm just thrilled that you all made the investment today in yourselves and in one another to participate in what is going to be an extraordinary next couple of days. So I am the head of diverse segments for our private bank at Bank of America. What I would tell you, so everything that you ladies have said thus far, ditto. It's all true. What I would add to that is at Bank of America and throughout my career, quite candidly, just like the role that I'm in today, I have been oftentimes the first Black female to ever achieve that role. And that's what we do. And so when you talk about confidence, Myja, the reality is most of us are going to go where we have not been before. And what you need to know today is that you can achieve, there's not anything, you can go back in history, you can study your history, study the history of the world. There's not one thing that Black women cannot do. We've proven that time and time and time again. And what we need is a strong village of support. And we have to support one another. You made the comment earlier, Myja, about the fact that oftentimes, there are institutions and structures that kind of try to tear us apart, divide us, and create a lot of division. And what we need to do is always remember that we are only as strong as the Black woman coming behind us. And so we need to make sure that we're constantly sewing into one another. I tell you, and Cynthia and Sonia probably remember this as well. There was a time where it was a little bit taboo in corporate America to have too many of us gathered, too many of us kind of, seen supporting one another. And what I would submit to you is that time's over, because we cannot allow for others to dictate how we show up in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And when we come together to support one another and empower one another, we're just unstoppable. And so I think the answer to the confidence question is, if you've got it, give some to your sister. Support her until she can build that confidence. So into her a level of investment, a level of influence, and a level of encouragement to make sure that she can get from point A to point Z, and then step in the gap whenever she needs that. Cynthia is the recipient, good, right, wrong, or indifferent. She's the recipient of many of these little text messages. So I am not a social media person at all. I mean, I don't even have a Facebook account. So don't go look for me, because you're not gonna find it. However, I am a text message queen. Do you hear me? And so I will wake up in the morning sometimes, or before I go to bed, God puts it on my heart, and I'll wake up and come up with I'll find some cute little image of some phenomenal Black Nubian princess, and I will send it out to just a whole cadre of phenomenal Black women who I know. And I don't know that they need inspiration. Nobody has said to me, I need that support, but that's how I'm feeling. And so I'll send it out, and I cannot tell you how many times somebody will pick up the phone and call me and say, sis, I needed that. You just don't know how much I needed that. And so we have got to continue to support one another. As you all are in school, this is great practice. Make sure that you check on one another, and that you have those conversations, not just about how you're doing in school, but how you're doing personally. Because confidence comes from not only knowing what you can do, but knowing what others around you are willing to do for you. And then continue that as you matriculate through college. And because the support system that we provide one another really allows us, as we're breaking barriers and we are shattering glass ceilings, and we're doing our thing to make sure that those behind us have a way that we didn't have. We have to make sure that we've got folks around us and in our lives who can help support that growth as we move forward. Did we lose Myja? There she is.
I think she's coming back on.
Well, while Myja's coming on, let me just share a tidbit of my story. So as Cynthia and Tiffany were speaking, I had to just sit back and reflect about my HBCU self. First of all, I love this. I love that we're coming together. I love that all of you today, because this is some real talk. And I think the talk about confidence and belief is something that's very necessary, especially today. I'm going to tell you, I didn't have confidence when I first started out. I have grown up in financial services. I started out as an investment banking analyst. I was one of a handful of Black women at the time in my analyst class. I didn't have a lot of support. And so my support system was really external. I lived for homecoming back in the day. When I tell you, just getting out of the corporate environment and going to Hampton and going to the yard and going to the cabs, I lived for that. I was like, if I could just make it to homecoming, I will be okay and get the energy that I need to keep going and being the only one on my floor. But I'm going to tell you, confidence for me, especially when it came to my day-to-day job, it came much later. And I'll tell you, it was my village who continued to support me, who continued to push me, tell me I could do it. My grandmother, who is my rock until this day, I call her every day. Most of the time I was in tears. I used to walk up and down Wall Street and literally ask my grandmother, I put her on the spot, Grandma, tell me why I shouldn't quit today. And she was so patient with me. And she would always say, baby, you are so blessed. you are blessed to have this job. There are a lot of people who want to be in your position. Every day she told me this, and she never got tired of it. And I would say it was people like my grandmother, my friends, my village, my parents who really supported me, telling me over and over again, I could do it. I'm here for a reason. No, the firm did not make a hiring mistake. I probably said that at least for the first 18 months when I started out. I think I was a hiring mistake. And then the confidence just started to build as I continued to connect with my village and my network and heard those positive messages over and over again. And it's funny because, looking back now, I feel like I'm in a position where I can really tackle anything. It's like throw it at me and I can do it. But it took years to get to this point. And it really took years of me forcing myself out of my comfort zone, taking risk. All of you are going to be presented with opportunities and decisions you'll have to make. I would encourage you to take opportunities, jump on those opportunities, jump on different things that come your way, even if it doesn't feel comfortable, because that's the way you build your confidence over time. Myja, I see you're back.
Child, this technology stuff. Thank y'all so much for being patient with me. My Wi-Fi done went in and out. And thank you so much for just hopping into the question. Miss Tiffany, the last thing that you said that really resonated with me was you mentioned, Black women working together. And going back to this idea of, we had Zoomtopia today and Miss Viola Davis, she said, she just dropped so many gems. But one thing she said was, if we aren't moving forward together, we aren't moving. And so that just really hit that head on the nail when you mentioned that. And that applies so much to Black women, because like you said, when we work together, we are unstoppable.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And we are just going to continue moving along, honey. That ain't nothing but the devil. That's what my dad used to say. That ain't the devil. The HBCU community is a family, and that is across HBCUs, not just within your HBCU, but across HBCUs, across the globe. We are a family. We look out for one another, and we know that there are people that come from a familiar culture that have your back. And, the same can be said about the HBCU network at Bank of America. Whether you're an intern, a young professional, a senior leader, there is a sense of community and support whenever you need it. Ms. Tiffany, let's start with you. What have you learned about the importance of building a strong network? And give me an example of an experience that you had leveraging your HBCU network in your professional life.
Oh my gosh, that's every day, literally. It is literally every day. And, I always like to brag on Bank of America and say that, we don't have the official numbers because they're not public, but based on all of our due diligence, you ladies know when we want to find something out, we can find it out. So we've done a lot of research and gone and had questions with our discussions and conversations with sister girls that sit in other organizations. And so we really do believe that we have more Black executives at Bank of America than any other financial services firm in the country. And a number of those Black executives come from HBCUs. And so, Myja, when I say, I'm not being facetious, when I say that literally every day in my day-to-day, I am leveraging, I am falling on the proverbial or leaning on the proverbial HBCU shield, right? We all have our different shields for our schools, but there is one HBCU shield, and really just trying to tap into that network to get a leg up. The reality is the world is going to come at you. And sometimes it feels like it's just overwhelming. What you have to do is recognize that there are people around you who not only you can lean on, but who you can source from. And so you have to be willing to pick up the phone and say, whether it's, you're trying to get into a new role, you're trying to identify talent for a role, you're trying to solve a big issue or challenge that you're responsible for, you're trying to hit a goal. Sometimes it just comes down to mental health and wellness, and recognizing that oftentimes, ladies, you're going to be the only one in your environment wherever you're working. And that's okay. But you have to lean into others. And what I often find is that people who come from shared backgrounds and experiences, oftentimes you don't even have to say much. You just have to be together and support one another. So there is not a day that goes by where I literally am not picking up the phone, on a text, on an email, leaning on the HBCU shield and identifying or relying on one of my HBCU brethren to really help provide support and assistance for what it is I'm doing. And by the same token, vice versa. I mean, I get calls all the time and am more than happy to yield support whenever it's needed from whomever, because as you mentioned, when one of us rises, all of us will rise.
Yeah, I love that. Always reaching back, understanding that you may be in an environment where you may be the only person who looks like
That's
you,
right.
but always having that network to reach back and lean on. Love that. Miss Sonia, what about you? What have you learned about the importance of building a strong network? And maybe give me an example of how you've leveraged your HBCU network today.
Oh my gosh, networks are so important. I mean, you need a network for your safety net. You need a network to bounce ideas off of. You need networks to vent, to figure out who your mentors are. I think a network is critically important. And because we're speaking, with a group of students, when you start out in the corporate world, you should know that there are people that you can seek out who will embrace you and make sure that you have the support that you need to be successful. And I would say that's the power of the HBCU network too. It's kind of like an undercurrent, and I would say I leverage my network every day. There's some situations that you may deal with at work that can be challenging. And, for me, I've been able to get over challenges by making phone calls and asking people, how have they dealt with the same situation? Are you dealing with this? Is this just me? How have you handled it? And I would say, I have a network at Bank of America, but I also have an external network too. People who are in similar jobs. And this is all in the HBCU community. And especially, as you progress in your career, you really depend on that network of individuals, And I would say, especially for now, you got to keep in contact with people is critically important, because you never know where people are going to go in their careers. And, especially within financial services where I've been, I mean, it's been a while now since I was an analyst. I mean, my friends are movers and shakers at this point. And, some of the things that I'm doing with some of my friends have been there and done that. And so for me to be able to call people just to sanity check, am I thinking about this correctly? What is your firm doing? Getting competitor intel. Is it just me handling this, or are you dealing with the same thing? And I mean, Cynthia, I think I shared with you not too long ago, it's really that network that has kept me sane in challenging situations, because it's, some of the challenges that I may deal with day to day, I know that I'm not the only one. And so being able to tap into that both internally and externally has been critical. And I would say that HBCU code is something, it's like a card that you can flash and people automatically get it and automatically want to have your back. And I'll share with you, because Tiffany, you mentioned this in terms of stats and what we can't report. I can't say I've been at multiple firms, and the Bank of America network is incredibly strong. And in terms of the number of Black professionals, and I mean senior Black professionals, all up and down the organization, is stronger than anything that I've seen. And the focus on HBCUs, the focus on local communities, the engagement, that's one of the reasons why I joined the firm, because that network is so strong. And I knew that this was a place where I could be comfortable, be myself, thrive, and lean on other professionals that have had similar journeys.
Love that. And I can attest to, having that HBCU woman that I can call and I say, is it me? Was that me? Was it me? Did you see? Okay. Yeah, I completely understand. So I can attest to that. Miss Cynthia, what about you? How would you say you've leveraged your HBCU network today?
So I'm gonna change it up a little bit because I really would just say ditto to both what Tiffany and Sonia said. I mean, I use my network both professionally and personally. And, a lot of the organizations that I was a part of while in school, I still leverage to this day. And whether that was sorority, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta, I was in the student government. I leveraged various different organizations that I was in based off my major. I still am connected to several individuals in dual degree, even though I am not even focusing on engineering. The reality is what you have to do is build those relationships up so you have relationship currency that at some point you want to cash in for whatever reason is necessary. It might be for advice, it might be for counsel, it might be for a new opportunity. The other thing I will say is manage your relationships well, though, and invest in them because you never know when you need them. I many times tell people don't be a 911 networker. It's okay to call people when you need help, but that's the only time you call individuals. You got to balance it out with calling to check in, saying hello, bantering and finding moments that matter to them while also asking for advice, asking for that referral, or asking for an opportunity. The other thing I will say is there's a book called Forget a Mentor and Get a Sponsor. And it doesn't mean mentorship doesn't matter, but sponsorship matters. And even at the level where you are today, it matters. You want to think about those individuals that are going to be willing to create a door for you or open up an opportunity. That might be a faculty member that you need to write that letter of recommendation. And I always say you might want to find people who will let you read them because sometimes people you might think are in your corner and they might not really be in your corner and can really influence an important opportunity for you. You might have someone who's willing to recommend you for an internship or an area of opportunity. That is sponsorship. That is someone who's in your corner, who's in a position of power and influence, who can create an opportunity on your behalf. So I would say, yes, mentorship is important. We use them day in and day out, both professionally and personally, but also think about those that are in your corner and are advocating for you in terms of sponsorship. The last thing I will say is this: Tiffany and I were both a part of a piece that was written a while ago, but I think you can still find it. It was called Black Women Ready to Lead. And it has some of these elements in it, and we're both quoted throughout the piece. But I think it's really important because it's one of the reasons why we started up this Ready to Lead session in the first place, and now have expanded it beyond the four walls of Bank of America to sessions like what we're doing today.
I love that, and it is so important that we think about sponsorship. So important. I'm so glad you brought that up because you need those people who are in rooms that you don't have access to, that are going to speak your name, that are going to say, oh, well, who's good for this position? I know a person. So that is so important. Sponsorship is so, so, so important. Switching gears just a bit here. When it comes to transitioning from campus to corporate, there are definitely some skill gaps that college does not fill. What were some of the challenges that you can remember feeling unprepared for when you entered the workplace, and what steps did you take to get to the next level in your career? Miss Sonia, let's start with you.
Well, sure. And because we've been on the topic of networking, I'm going to start there because this is where I made some early mistakes. So I shared with you that I was an investment banking analyst, and so the hours were incredibly long. Mm-hmm. And so the last thing I wanted to do was network outside of work with some colleagues. To be honest with you, I thought I had nothing in common with. I'm sleep deprived, I'm stressed. I don't want to grab a drink with you. What I noticed, though, was that over time, those invitations started to stop. And also what I noticed was that people actually talked shop and exchanged ideas over those drinks or during those networking opportunities that I missed out on. And so I'll tell you, that was an early career mistake. And fortunately, I'm pretty observant. So I could tell what was going on. People would come into the office the next day laughing about what was discussed, the evening before. I missed out on all of that. And in terms of relationship capital, and making those personal connections with people, I noticed that in order for me to be successful, it's not just about putting your head down. I know we talked about that before. I would say, especially when you're just starting a new job, performance is important and is key. So you have to perform, but that's just at the foundation. Beyond that, you do have to pick your head up, observe, look at what's going on, observe the culture, and figure out how you navigate so you can be in the know, and in the flow of information and in the flow of activity. And so I would say networking is incredibly important, and making an effort to make those personal connections with people. And one thing that I say to students all the time is that you can find something in common with anyone. And I would say what you have to do is just talk to them enough, to figure out what those commonalities are. But it does take effort. And so I would say, even at school, as you're networking with faculty, networking with your classmates, make sure that you're keeping that top of mind, especially when you go into an internship. And you should also recognize that reputation matters. And we're talking about mentorship and sponsorship. Obviously, you need to present yourself as someone that people want to get to know and work with. But I would say that was probably my first learning in my career.
Absolutely. Let's toss it over to you, Miss Tiffany. What would you say were some of your challenges, as you transition from school to corporate from that HBCU life to that corporate life, and what steps did you take to kind of overcome those things?
Yeah, great question. And I agree with everything that Sonia said. And just to expound upon that just a minute, the way you should look at it is the reality is people want to work around and be around people that they can relate to. They want to be comfortable. You want to be comfortable at work, just like you're comfortable outside of work. And to Sonia's point, if you don't take the time for people to get to know you personally, you can kill it in your day job. And I promise you, you will not achieve where you want to go, because people will look at you as, doing great work, but not necessarily being part of the team, not necessarily being someone who they can relate to and who they can trust when, things may go a little bit awry. And so it is so important to take the time and invest as much in yourself and your network as you're investing in doing great work for the company that you work for. In terms of the transition, quite candidly, we're talking about HBCUs. And the reality is, most of us who go to HBCUs have the pleasure of walking around every day and being in classes and on campus with people who are culturally very much familiar with us, right? We all come from similar cultures and backgrounds. And so making the transition can be a little bit jarring, quite candidly. It can be when you go from being one of many to being the only one, and especially earlier in your career, it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially because you don't necessarily understand some of the nuances of corporate culture versus coming out of, educational culture or campus culture. And so I think, Myja, to overcome that, or at least to allow yourself to settle into it a little bit more easily, again, go back to that network that you built. Go back to those, sister friends that you had at school. Go back to even your professors, and don't be afraid to call someone up and say, hey, this is a situation that's going on and I need to talk through it. Right? If something doesn't feel right with you, go with your intuition. There's a reason that you have it. And typically female intuition is one of the strongest and most accurate indicators or tools that you have. So if you actually feel like something is not going the way that it should, or not sitting well with you, then don't hesitate to reach out to others and try to seek out that advice, that counsel in a safe space. Sonia mentioned it before, or maybe it was Cynthia, that when you go into whatever your job is, when you transition out, you will want to seek out a couple of folks that who have been working for a while that you can relate to in your company and outside of your company, because it won't be just a smooth road. I mean, I always say nothing worth having comes easy. And so you're going to hit bumps in the road. You're going to have situations where you're uncomfortable. And just remember that discomfort will make you better, but you have to get through it. And the way you do it is with your village. So I could talk about that forever, but I'm going to toss it over to my good sister girlfriend, Cynthia, because she and I have been through some of these uncomfortable situations together, and she knows exactly where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Tiffany's saying is if there's no growth, or no discomfort, there's no growth. And, I had the pleasure of interning several years. So I had an internship every summer except for my freshman year in college. And I will tell you that those experiences helped me to understand what I would call corporate gravitas, how you're expected to act or behave in the corporate world. Corporations aren't expecting you to not be your authentic self, but understanding when I say gravitas, how you behave, how do you interact in group settings, how do you collaborate, how do you make decisions, how do you command a room, how do you represent your brand? So those are all things that you should be thinking about when you intern. Because the reality is the internship experiences you're having now, you want those experiences to give you an opportunity to see what corporate America is going to be like, and ideally have a job before you ever graduate. Most of the interns we had this past summer were converted to full-time hires. So they're going back to campus this year with, they might be seeking other jobs, but they have that weight off their shoulder of knowing where they're working before they graduate. By the way, I know we talked about sort of being the only one, but one of the things I'm proud about is Bank of America does look like the world we live in. So we are now over 48% people of color, which is the term for the non-white population. We're about 19% Hispanic Latino. We're 14% Black, which the census is a little over 13.5%. So that's when I say look like the world we live in. And then similarly for other races. Same thing for our campus class under the leadership of Sonia. I believe the last class, and Sonia will correct me here, but was well over 50% people of color. I think it was 54%. And similar statistics across every group. And that not only includes campus hires, which a strong population from HBCUs, but our external hiring in general, meaning lateral people coming into the back, is equally diverse. So I just want you to know if you choose a career here, you will be able to look around and see people who look like yourself. And then we have similar statistics where we share our board members, our management team members. We've been changing the face of the 3D leadership, which are 3 leads from the CEO. As a matter of fact, we tracked that number from 2015, and we've increased representation of people of color at the top 3 levels by 46% over that time period. So I just wanted to share some of those stats, but at the end of the day, what I would say is the number one thing I had to work on was my communications. So I remember the first time I was up on stage at Spelman, I was running for a class officer, and I just remembered having almost like that cotton mouth where I just felt like everyone could sort of see me fumble through it. And I said, from this point on, I'm going to practice speaking everywhere that I possibly can. So I put myself in as many uncomfortable situations as possible. I did Toastmasters. I enrolled in a course. I watched myself on video. I played it back, because knowing how to command a room and being able to convey confidence in how you display information is important. And so for me, it was just one of those areas. I would also not ask questions in class. I would write myself Post-it notes to say, speak up now. And they would be inside my book when I would open it. Or I would write down questions that I wanted to think about in advance so I knew what I wanted to say. Because we've all been in that situation where you want to say something, and before you can get it out, someone says your point because you waited too long to speak up. The other thing I will say is when I'm at networking events, I have a strategy. So I know in advance who's coming. I know who's speaking. I might think about research 1 or 2 things about them so that when I approach that person, I'm able to connect and show that I've done my homework. The last thing I will say is to Sonia's point, and I had to grow over time because I'm not a natural extrovert, but I would make sure that when I went to a bank function, that I reached out to people that were in alignment to my own personal goals. So if there was 1 or 2 areas where I saw myself working,
I would make sure I would go talk to those people and say, introduce myself, and then say, do you mind if I follow up with a meeting? So I got much more comfortable being proactive about connecting the dots during networking opportunities or in certain events, whether it be public speaking or capitalizing on time with talent to ensure that I'm speaking up in moments that matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the idea of, can you guys hear echo on my end?
It went
Okay,
away.
maybe that was my computer. Okay. And I love the idea of, aligning with people who had similar goals as you, similar personal goals, because when we reach back again, and when we collaborate, we're unstoppable. And so in the essence of time, I would like to toss it back over to Miss Tia. But ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, just to hear from you all who are experienced, who are experts in your fields, who have been doing this for years, and who are mentors, who serve as mentors. So this has been an uplifting experience for me, just to be here and listen to you all as well. And thank you all for having me as your moderator as well. I had a great time. I always have fun. I love making people laugh. So this has been a joy for me. And Tia, I'm going to toss it back over to you.